Good morning, everyone. Back to A Few Good Men. I don't know about you, but I love reading through scripts. I love seeing how movies are formed at their basis. I wish I had draft number 1 and draft number 2 so that we could go through those as well as draft number 3. I do apologize. This was, and it is, what we do in grade 10 and 11 when we're not interrupted by lockdowns. This is supposed to be a table read. This is supposed to be us sitting down, each one of us taking a different role. I would be the narrator, you would get to act. And it's not about the acting so much as it is about understanding the emotion that gets put into the descriptions and the dialogue. So, I enjoy this. I think you can tell listening to me that I enjoy this. Whether or not you enjoy it, that's going to be another issue. So, yesterday, or 2 days ago, we read the opening, right? We were in some military installation. There was a fence that surrounded it. There were sentry towers and guards posted, staring out into the blackness with guns slung on their shoulders. There were searchlights cutting through the ground mist. There were noises of the wilderness that lay beyond the fences. And then, for some reason, which we don't know yet, 2 people walked directly to the room of a third person, Willie Santiago, and they basically assaulted Willie Santiago. They grabbed him, they stuffed a rag in his mouth, they bound his hands and feet with tape, and for some reason one of the 2 people who did it said, "You're lucky it's us, Willie," sending a really ominous tone that, like I said 2 days ago, if Willie's lucky that it's them, how unlucky would he have been if it were somebody else? So in the middle of all this violence that was going on, we cut, or smashed cut, directly to this one right here, or this next sequence. So up I go. There we go. Okay. In the middle of the violence, there were 4 sharp whistle blasts, and then we smashed cut to exterior, so we're outside. The Washington Naval Yard. This is one of the bases in Washington, D.C., where the Navy has its training facilities, where its officers meet, where they meet with the president. They do all of this stuff. And it's daytime. We're no longer in the darkness. We're no longer in the night. And the drum cadence that we've been hearing has turned into Semper Fidelis. Semper Fidelis is the musical motto of the Marine Corps. It is a song that when you hear it played, you might say, "Oh yeah, I've heard that before. I just didn't know what it was, nor did I know what it was called." It's coming from the U.S. Marine Corps Marching Band, a sight to behold in their red and gold uniforms and polished silver and brass. The traditions of the military are going to play an extremely important part in this movie, because it is the traditions of the military that form the basis of everything that will go on in this film. The band is performing on a huge and lush parade grounds before a crowd that is mostly made up of tourists and day campers, as the title sequence rolls by. Now, this is an interesting point. When you have opening credits in your short films, you have a limited amount of time to grab your audience's attention. You have to use the opening credits to immerse your audience in something important regarding your film. You don't want just opening credits over black, unless you're trying to create a mystery. You want opening credits over images that help you understand the setup of the movie. So, as the titles roll, we watch the band do their thing from various angles. Incredible precision is the name of the game. Each polished black shoe hitting the ground as if they were all attached to a rod. Each drumstick raised to the same fraction of a centimeter before striking. A rifled drill team that can't possibly be human. Flags, banners, the works. Underneath all of this, a title. Washington Naval Yard, Washington, D.C. Cut to high angle of the entire band as we finish up the credits. Again, in a script, you don't talk about what's going on in every moment of the credits. You talk about basically the action while the credits roll. Next sequence, exterior, a red brick building, daytime. So we're outside of a red brick building. According to the script, it is an important building. It's a main building. A few sailors are entering and exiting. And then we cut to a woman. Here comes our first main character. As she walks across the courtyard towards the brick building, the woman is Jo Galloway. She's a Navy lawyer in her early 30s. She's bright, attractive, impulsive, and has a tendency to speak too quickly. If she had any friends, they'd call her Jo. As she walks, she's muttering to herself. So we get a little bit of character description, a little physical description, and a little insight into the character. And we'll get much more based on what she says and does. So here are her lines. Notice, name centered, dialogue centered. That name should be bolded and in all caps. It is in all caps. And Joanne Galloway is a Navy lawyer. She's very smart. She's very good at her job. What she's not good at is talking to people, which is, a bit of a hindrance when you're a lawyer. You've got to be good at talking to people. As a result, Joanne has never risen up the ranks as quickly as she would like to. So here's an instance where she's about to go see somebody, and a very important meeting is going to happen, and so she's practicing what she's going to say ahead of time. So, Jo's lines. I'm requesting, I'm Captain, I'd like to request to be the attorney assigned to I'd like to request that it be myself who is assigned to represent, Good, Jo. That's confidence inspiring. So, she knows she's not the best at talking to people. And she knows that even with practice, she's not nearly as impressive as she needs to be in order to get this big case that she wants to talk about. We follow Jo, still muttering as she walks into the brick building, which bears the seal of the United States Navy Judge Advocate General Corps. Now, a Judge Advocate General is the lawyer, the courtrooms, the trials. It's the whole system of law that the Navy uses to govern itself. If a sailor gets in trouble, they don't go to regular court. They don't get thrown in regular jail. They go to Navy stockades. And their trial is done in front of the judicial system of the Navy called the Judge Advocate General Corps. We cut to interior. Captain West's office, daytime. As Jo enters, Captain West and two other officers, Gibbs and Lawrence, sit around a conference table. Now, I'm going to give you the dialogue, but I'm not going to mention the names every time. Or maybe I will. Gibbs would turn to Jo and say, Jo, come on in. Jo very respectfully says, thank you, sir. Gibbs, Captain West, this is Lieutenant Commander Galloway. Jo, you know Mike Lawrence? Jo, yes, sir. Then she looks at West. Captain, I appreciate you seeing me on such short notice. West is the big dog. This is the main guy in the room. He is a no-nonsense alpha male, and he has no problem letting people know that he's in charge. Watch how he deals with all of the people under him in this scene. West. I understand there was some trouble over the weekend down in Cuba. He's talking directly about the scene we saw earlier with Willie Santiago and the two other people. Jo explains. Yes, sir. This past evening, two Marines, Corporal Harold Dawson and Private Loudon Downey, entered the barracks room of PFC William Santiago and assaulted him. Santiago died at the base hospital approximately an hour later. The NIS agent who took their statements maintained that they were trying to prevent Santiago from naming them in a fence line shooting incident. They're scheduled to have a hearing down in Cuba at 0400 this afternoon. Mike Lawrence says, well, what's the problem? Jo says, Dawson and Downey are both recruiting poster Marines, and Santiago was known to be a screw-up. I was thinking it sounded an awful lot like a code red. Jo lets this sink in for a moment. Whatever she just said, that doesn't make sense to the rest of us, does make sense to these people in the Navy. What is a code red? We're going to find out what a code red is eventually. Why are these people so taken aback by the uttering of the words? You're going to find out in a few minutes. Captain West curses under his breath. I'm not going to say it, but whatever. Jo continues to explain. I'd like to have them move up to Washington and assign counsel. Somebody who can really look into this. Somebody who possesses not only the legal skills, but a familiarity with the inner workings of the military. In short, Captain, I'd like to suggest that I be the one that it is me who is assigned to represent them. Myself. Jo looks around the room for a response. West, here comes the alpha dog. Joanne, why don't you go get yourself a cup of coffee? Joe replies, thank you, sir, I'm fine. West, the alpha dog. Joanne, I'd like you to leave the room so we can talk about you behind your back. Joe, knowing he's the alpha dog, says, certainly, sir. Joe gets up and walks out, and now the rest of them begin to talk about what she's just said. West, the alpha male. I thought this code red crap wasn't going on anymore. Lawrence, with the Marines down at Gitmo, who the heck knows what goes on down there? West. Well, let's find out before the rest of the world does, or this thing could get messy. What about this woman? Lawrence. Joe's been working a desk in internal affairs for what, almost a year now? And West. And before that? Gibbs. She disposed of 3 cases in 2 years. 3 cases is not a lot to get done in 3 years of work. So West questions her credentials, her ability. 3 cases in 2 years? Who's she handling? The Rosenbergs? The Rosenbergs were a very famous couple who had their baby abducted. This was back in the 40s or 50s. I don't remember exactly when. And as the case moved on, it was found out that they had intentionally had their baby abducted in order to obtain money through blackmail and ransom from their parents who were richer than them, blah, blah, blah. But that's the reference to the Rosenbergs. Gibbs. Joe is not cut out for litigation, meaning she's no good in a courtroom. Lawrence chimes in, but she's a heck of an investigator, Jerry. And Gibbs doesn't shout back, comments back. Internal affairs, sure. She can crawl up the butt of a lawyer with the best of them. When it comes to trial work, now West, the alpha male, cuts in and basically says, I got it. Shut up. No more talking about it. West says, I know. All passion and no street smarts. Bring her back in. Lawrence goes to the door and motions for Joe to come back in. Captain West, the alpha male, says, talking to Joe, Commander, we're going to move the defendants up here in the morning. Joe thanks him. Thank you, sir. West, the alpha male, and I'll have Division assign them a counsel. Now, counsel is their lawyer. Division is the group that assigns the lawyers. Joe knows what this means. Back to Joe, after pausing for a beat. But not me? West, trying to be nice. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't even want to be. But he's trying to be. From what I understand from your colleagues, you're much too valuable in your present assignment to be wasted on what I'm sure will boil down to a 5-minute plea bargain and a week's worth of paperwork. Now, Joe tries to step in and express how passionately she wants this case, but she doesn't get very far because Joe is one of those people who has a hard time processing their thoughts and then getting them out quickly. Sir, but West cuts her off. Don't worry about it. I promise you. Division will assign the right man for the job. And that's the end of the next scene. And as you can see in the next scene, we are going to meet who the right man for the job is, and he is going to be our next main character in this screenplay. His name is going to be Daniel Caffey. So here we go. Cut to an exterior shot of a softball field, daytime. Here's the right man for the job. His name is Lieutenant Junior Grade Daniel Alistair Caffey, and he's almost impossible not to like. At the moment, he's hitting fungos with about a dozen lawyers who are spread out across the softball field. Fungos is when you just take practice infielding, right? You take a bat that doesn't have a lot of pop, you hit the ball so that everyone just goes through the motions of practicing the movements of fielding a ground ball and throwing to first base. The 27 Yankees, they ain't, but they could possibly hold their own against, say, a group of Air Force dentists. Caffey is in his late 20s. 15 months out of Harvard Law School. He is a brilliant legal mind waiting for a courageous spirit to drive it. He is at this point in his life passionate about nothing except softball. So you're going to meet tomorrow Dan Caffey, and you're going to see how his dialogue and his delivery of the dialogue help shape his character. And you're going to see why they chose him for the job. Daniel Caffey is charming, he's sarcastic, but he's got this way of drawing people in. Even when he's correcting you, and you'll see this in the next scene, he still makes you feel like he's your best friend, and by the time he's done correcting you, you want to go have beers with the guy and hang out because he's just so darn likable. Kind of the opposite of Joe Galloway, who is exceptionally smart, but she doesn't have the people skills. And that difference in character makes for a great contrast. Hopefully you're excited. We'll do more script tomorrow. Take care.